These are the 5 things you need to know about the Residential Tenancies Act in Ontario. What's going on, everybody? My name is Andrew, and if you're a landlord in Ontario, you ought to have heard of the Residential Tenancies Act. What a lot of people don't know about this act is that it was once upon a time known as the Tenant Protection Act, and as such, you can probably imagine that there's a lot of things in this act that are geared towards the protection of tenants. But if you are a landlord and you're wondering, what are my rights? What can I do? Is this act even there for me? I'm going to tell you a few things you need to know as go your landlord rights. And it's not that you don't have any rights. You do have something in your corner, but you just got to know what is there for you and how to use it. So first thing I want to start with is, what is the Residential Tenancies Act, or the RTA? The RTA is the act that sets out the rights and responsibilities between landlords and tenants renting residential properties. It feels like it's mostly there to make sure that landlords aren't putting any clauses in their lease agreements that are going to be exploitative to the tenancy, or vice versa. The main areas that it tends to regulate have to do with maintenance, rent controls, evictions, and other more common general disputes. One of the clear examples I like to mention sometimes is that a lot of landlords believe that if you're renting out a single family home, that you can assign the tenant responsibility of mowing the lawn in the lease agreement, and that is in fact against the RTA. There's little things like this that people sometimes find out that they cannot do. There's so many things to consider when it comes to the RTA, and you're not going to really need to know everything here, but there are a few big things to consider here, which brings us to our second thing we're going to talk about: rent control. A lot of landlords believe that you can rent out your property, and when your lease is up, you can raise the rent or have the tenant leave and you can re-rent the property for a higher price. But herein comes rent control. But the rent control in Ontario doesn't actually apply to properties that were built after November 15th, 2018. The maximum amount you can increase your rent this year for 2023 is a whopping 2.5%. Which now brings us into the third thing I want to talk to you guys about: maintenance. Now, maintenance is one of those things that most landlords and tenants tend to dispute over, which brings us to the RTA, where the rule is the landlord has to maintain the property in good working and functioning order, and the tenant has to maintain the property in a good state of cleanliness, not damage the place or impede with the landlord towards the function of the property. The landlord has to take care of things, but if proven to be the tenant's responsibility, the tenant has to pay for it, but the landlord still has to fix it. Now, the fourth thing that we're going to talk about here has to do with eviction. Landlords cannot evict tenants. Evictions can only be carried out by a sheriff, and a sheriff has to be ordered by the landlord and tenant board to evict a tenant in order for you to be able to have this done. The disposition of this whole thing is really in place to encourage people to work things out together and not just take things to the tribunal. If you as a landlord are wondering about the Residential Tenancies Act, or you're wondering about what rights do you have, the short answer is it's gonna feel like you don't have a lot in your favor, but you need to understand what you do have working for you and what you don't. So don't try to go against the grain in this circumstance. And if you are finding yourself between a rock and a hard place, as a lot of people are in 2023 with the rising costs of their mortgages, with inflation being so high, and if you're a landlord and you're having a dispute with your tenant and your tenant isn't paying rent or having financial troubles, and you're both at ends with each other, it is going to definitely be better and cheaper if you find a way to work things out reasonably. It has nothing to do with the Residential Tenancies Act. Learn to play the game, leverage your finances, and be a professional landlord. If you want help with your real estate investing game, make sure to contact us. We have coaching programs on how you can be a better real estate investor. In the meantime, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you on the next one.